Hello children. Today we are going to study the treatment of workmen compensation reserve at the time of change in profit sharing ratio. Before we begin, let us just recollect what is the purpose of workmen compensation reserve. If you remember, we have already studied in class 11th in the chapter of depreciation, provisions and reserves. Workmen compensation reserve is a reserve which is created in order to compensate the workers of a business if they meet any accident during the working hours in the business. Now, this reserve is an appropriation and is created only out of profits. Now, when the profit sharing ratio changes, what will be the treatment of this reserve under various circumstances? That is our topic of discussion for the day. Here we have taken one example where X and Y were partners who were sharing profits in the ratio of 3:2. That means 3:2 was their old ratio, and they have decided to share the future profits in the ratio of 1:1. That means 1:1 will be their new ratio. The workmen compensation reserve stood at rupees 20,000 in the balance sheet. Now what will be the treatment of the reserve? The first case. The first case when there is no claim for the reserve. In that case, the whole amount of reserve, that is the 20,000, is free and has to be distributed to the partners in the old ratio. What will be the journal entry in the case when there is no claim for the reserve? The amount of 20,000 which is standing in workmen compensation reserve which has a credit balance. Now since we are closing the reserve and distributing the amount to the partners, the amount in reserve with credit balance will be debited and it will be transferred to the partners in the old profit sharing ratio. Now the question arises, why old ratio? This reserve was created out of the profits when partners were sharing profits in the ratio of 3:2, that is the old ratio. If not used for the purpose of compensating the workers, it should be distributed to the partners in the same ratio. That is why the workmen compensation reserve will be distributed in the old ratio between the old partners when there is no claim. So the journal entry, as I told you, reserve has got credit balance. Now when it will be closed, it will be debited. The journal entry will become workmen compensation reserve account debit to partners capital / current account. Let us take in our example when there is no claim, the reserve amount is 20,000. This 20,000 will be distributed between X and Y in the old profit sharing ratio 3:2. The journal entry goes like this: workmen compensation reserve account debit with 20,000 to X capital account to Y's capital account. This 20,000 will be distributed in the ratio of 3:2 as 12,000 and 8,000. Now let us come to the second condition. Second condition can be when there is some claim against the reserve. That means maybe some of the workers have met with an accident and there is an amount to be given to the workers for compensation. Now the claim is equal to the amount of reserve. That means the claim which we have to give to the worker is 20,000 in our case, like this. In that case, the whole amount of reserve, instead of distributing to the partners as we did in the first case, has to be given to the workers in the form of claim. That means our liability arises against the reserve. So reserve has to be closed. Reserve will be debited as we debited in the first case. But now the amount of workmen compensation reserve, instead of being transferred to partners capital / current account, will now be transferred to a new liability which will be the claim against workmen compensation. So the journal entry will be workmen compensation reserve account debit to workmen compensation claim. In our example, the journal entry will be same and the amount will be 20,000 because the whole reserve has been claimed. Now let us come to the third condition. Now in the second condition, we assumed that the whole amount of reserve has been claimed. there can be possibility that the claim is either less or more than the amount of reserve. First of all, let us take when the claim is less than the amount of reserve. Let us take this example. The claim is 15,000. Now the reserve was created for 20,000, but the claim is only for an amount of 15,000. That means now here we have to give two treatments, the combination of the first and second treatment. For 15,000, which is the amount of claim, we'll be giving the second treatment. And for the 1000, when there is no claim, we'll be giving the first treatment. So the third condition is a combination of first and second. So the journal entry will be like this. Let us take this example, and the workmen compensation reserve account will be debited with the whole amount of 20,000. Out of this 20,000, 15,000 is the amount of claim. As we have seen in second condition, the amount of claim is transferred to workmen compensation claim. So here, out of 20,000, 15,000 will be transferred to workmen compensation claim, and the remaining 5,000 will be distributed to the partners in the old ratio as we did in the first case. So here it goes. Workman compensation reserve debit 20,000 to workman compensation claim amount 15,000 to X capital account, and to Y capital account the balancing amount of 5,000, that is 20,000 minus 15,000, will be distributed in the ratio of 3:2 between X and Y. Here we journalize the entry workman compensation reserve debit to workman compensation claim to partners capital oblique current account. So this was the condition when the amount of claim is less than the amount of reserve. The case can be just reverse of it. That means the amount of claim can be more than the amount of reserve. Let us take the other example. Under condition 4, when the claim is more than the amount of reserve. Let us see. The claim is 25,000. Now the reserve given in our case was 20,000, but the claim is 25,000. Now under such circumstances, the whole amount of reserve has to be utilized for adjusting the claim. But since the reserve is not sufficient, reserve is only 20,000 while the claim is 25,000. So the balance amount of 5,000 for adjusting the total claim of 25,000 will be adjusted by debiting revaluation account, because that will be a loss which has to be taken from revaluation account and then further adjusted to partners capital account. How we'll frame the journal entry. Now let us see. Workman compensation reserve account will be debited with the whole amount of 20,000. The balance amount which we have to create for claim, that is 5,000, will be taken by debiting revaluation account, and 20 and 5 together 25 will be transferred to workman's compensation claim. Now the revaluation which was debited by 5,000, that is a loss and has to be borne by the partners, so will be distributed to the partners by debiting their capital oblique current account and crediting the revaluation account. Now let us make the journal entry in case of our example. Now the journal entry will be same. Let us see the amounts. The workman compensation account will be debited with 20,000, the whole amount of reserve. The revaluation account will be debited by 5,000, and the total amount 20 and 5, 25,000 will be transferred to workman compensation claim. Now the revaluation which was debited by 5,000 has to be closed. We will credit that revaluation account and the amount will be transferred to the old partners in the old profit sharing ratio, and that will be sharing of loss on revaluation. So the X capital account will be debited, Y's capital account will be debited, and this 5,000 which is a loss on revaluation will be distributed again in the old ratio. So this was condition number 4. Now there can be one more condition, that is an agreement between the partners when there is no information about the claim but partners do not want to distribute the reserve. Now children, see that when there is no claim under condition number first, when we studied, the whole amount of reserve was distributed to partners capital or current account in the old ratio. But If partners agree and decide that they do not want to distribute the reserve, then the amount of reserve, instead of being distributed to partners, will have to be adjusted by passing an adjustment entry. Now, why do we need an adjustment entry? The thing is that the reserve is created, the reserve was created out of old profits when the profit sharing ratio between the partners was 3:2. If not utilized for the purpose, it should be distributed in the old ratio. But now, as partners decide that they do not want to distribute the reserve, in that case, the reserve, if not distributed now, in future, if it is distributed, it will go in the ratio of 1:1, which will be wrong because this reserve was created out of profits when the profit sharing ratio between the partners were 3:2. Then why it should go in the ratio of 1:1? So we have to come to one solution to this problem. In that case, we will pass an adjustment entry. What adjustment entry? We will find the gain and sacrifice. X and Y were sharing profits in the ratio of 3:2, which was their old ratio. And in future, they will be sharing in the ratio of 1:1. So we will find the gain and sacrifice by using the formula for sacrifice, that is old share minus new share. We have calculated here. Let us see. Now, the calculation of gain and sacrifice. The old share of X was 3/5, new share 1/2, 1/10. The answer, which is sacrifice. For Y, the answer is coming minus 1/10, that is gain. That means in future Y will be gaining and X will be sacrificing. So whatever will be the share of partner between X and Y, the amount will be adjusted by passing adjustment entry. What adjustment entry? The gaining partner will compensate the sacrificing partner, because in future this amount of reserve which X should have got more amount, instead of X, Y will be getting more. So Y is going to compensate X for that gain which he is going to get on part of X. So the journal entry will be Y's capital account debit to X capital account. How to calculate the amount? The total amount of reserve, which was 20,000, on that we will multiply the gain and sacrifice and we will get the amount which will come in case of adjustment entry. So these were the 5 conditions of treatment of workmen compensation reserve at the time of change in profit sharing ratio. We can practice more questions based on this. Thank you.